In a distant part of the galaxy, humanity had formed an alliance with the Valoran race. The Valorans were peaceful beings who valued harmony above all else. They lived on a beautiful planet filled with lush forests and shimmering lakes. For years, humans and Valorans worked together to protect their shared corner of the universe from threats that loomed in the dark void of space. Commander Nathan Cole was one of Earth's top leaders. He had been stationed on the Valoran homeworld for months, helping to strengthen ties between the two races. Ambassador Clara Hayes, a skilled negotiator, joined him there. Together, they represented Earth's hopes for a brighter future, one where humans and aliens could thrive side by side. But little did they know, danger was lurking just beyond the horizon. The Galactic War Council was a powerful group that controlled many planets across the galaxy. They saw the growing bond between Earth and the Valorans as a threat. To them, unity meant rebellion, and rebellion meant loss of control. So they made a decision that would change everything. Late one night, while most of the Valoran population slept peacefully, the Council launched a brutal attack. Nathan and Clara were in a meeting when it happened. The ground shook violently, and alarms blared throughout the city. Red lights flashed as panicked voices echoed over communication channels. "We're under attack," someone shouted. Without hesitation, Nathan grabbed his weapon and ran outside. Clara closed behind him. The sky was ablaze with fire. Ships descended from above, raining destruction on the once peaceful planet. Explosions tore through buildings, sending debris flying in every direction. The Valorans, unprepared for such an assault, scrambled to defend themselves. But they were no match for the Council's advanced technology. Nathan spotted a group of Valoran civilians running for cover. He waved them toward a nearby bunker. "Hurry," he shouted. "Get inside." As they disappeared into safety, he turned to Clara. "We need to get to the command center," he said. "If we can send a distress signal, maybe Earth can help." The journey to the command center was treacherous. Streets were littered with rubble, and smoke choked the air. Enemy drones patrolled the skies, targeting anything that moved. At one point, Nathan and Clara had to dive behind a toppled statue to avoid being hit by a laser blast. Their hearts pounded as they waited for the drone to pass. When they finally reached the command center, the scene was grim. Most of the staff lay dead or injured. A few surviving officers worked frantically to activate the emergency beacon. "It's not working," one of them cried. "They'd jammed our signals." Clara stepped forward, her mind racing. She knew how important it was to get a message out. "Let me try," she said calmly. Her fingers flew across the console as she reprogrammed the system. Seconds felt like hours. Then, finally, a green light blinked on the screen. "Message sent," she whispered. But relief was short-lived. The building shook again as another explosion rocked the area. Outside, enemy troops were closing in. Nathan glanced at Clara. "We have to go. Now." Grabbing what weapons they could find, they fled into the chaos. As they ran, Nathan couldn't shake the feeling of guilt. He had promised to protect the Valorans, but now their world was crumbling around him. Still, he vowed to fight back. If Earth received their message, reinforcements would come. Until then, all they could do was survive and hope. Little did they know, the betrayal ran deeper than they imagined. Back on Earth, leaders watched in horror as reports of the attack flooded in. President Laura Monroe clenched her fists as she realized the truth. The Galactic War Council had declared war not just on the Valorans, but on humanity itself. Back on Earth, the news of the attack on the Valoran homeworld spread like wildfire. The images were horrifying. Burning cities, fleeing civilians, and the shattered remains of what was once a symbol of peace and cooperation. People gathered around screens in public squares, their faces filled with shock and anger. How could this happen? Why would the Galactic War Council betray them so cruelly? President Laura Monroe stood in the Situation Room, her expression grim as advisors briefed her on the situation. Maps of the galaxy glowed on large screens, showing the Council's fleet movements. It was clear they weren't just targeting the Valorans. They were positioning themselves to strike Earth next. "We can't let fear paralyze us," she said firmly. "If we don't act now, humanity will be wiped out." She turned to address the nation. Cameras rolled as she stepped up to the podium, her voice steady but filled with resolve. "Today, we face an enemy that values power over life," she began. "They have betrayed our trust and destroyed our allies. But I promise you this, Earth will not bow to tyranny. We will fight back with every resource we have." Her words ignited a fire within the people. Across the planet, volunteers lined up at recruitment centers, eager to join the defense forces. Factories shifted from producing consumer goods to manufacturing weapons and starships. Even children pitched in, collecting supplies for soldiers heading to the front lines. At the heart of Earth's response was Captain Jacob Reed, leader of the Eclipse Vanguard *. Known for his calm demeanor under pressure, Jacob had earned the respect of his crew through years of service. Now, he faced the greatest challenge of his career. He assembled a team of experts, each chosen for their unique skills. Among them was Lieutenant Sophia Blake, a brilliant strategist who could analyze complex battle scenarios in seconds. Sophia had spent countless hours studying the Council's tactics. She knew they relied on overwhelming force and psychological warfare to crush their opponents. But she also believed they had weaknesses, gaps in their defenses that could be exploited. "We need to hit them where it hurts," she told Jacob during a planning session. "Destroy their supply lines, disrupt their communications, make them doubt their own strength." Jacob nodded, agreed. "But we'll need more than just brute force. We need allies." He glanced at the map on the table, searching for potential supporters. Most neutral species had avoided taking sides in galactic conflicts, fearing retaliation. But if Earth could convince even a few to join their cause, it might tip the scales in their favor. Meanwhile, Ambassador Clara Hayes worked tirelessly to rally diplomatic support. From her temporary base on Earth, she reached out to leaders of various alien races. Many were hesitant, worried about provoking the Council's wrath. But Clara refused to give up. She shared stories of the Valorans' kindness and courage, emphasizing the importance of standing together against oppression. One evening, after another long day of negotiations, Clara received an unexpected visitor, Nathan Cole. Having barely escaped the destruction of the Valoran homeworld, he had returned to Earth with a renewed sense of purpose. "I want to help," he told her simply. "Whatever it takes." Clara smiled faintly. "You already are," she replied. "Your survival is proof that we can still win this fight." As days turned into weeks, Earth's preparations intensified. Starships patrolled the skies, ready to intercept any incoming threats. Soldiers drilled tirelessly, honing their combat skills, and ordinary citizens did whatever they could to contribute, whether it was growing food for troops or repairing damaged equipment. Despite the growing determination, doubts lingered in some minds. Could Earth truly stand against such a powerful enemy? What if they failed? These questions weighed heavily on everyone, especially Jacob and Sophia. Yet, whenever despair threatened to creep in, they reminded themselves of why they were fighting. For the fallen Valorans, for humanity's future, and for the hope of freedom in a galaxy ruled by fear. In the end, it wasn't just about winning a war. It was about proving that unity and courage could overcome even the darkest of times. Sophia Blake sat alone in a dimly lit room, her eyes scanning lines of encrypted data on a glowing screen. The hum of the computer filled the silence as she worked late into the night. She had always been good at finding patterns where others saw chaos, and tonight, something caught her attention. A series of anomalies hidden deep within old galactic records. At first, the information seemed harmless. Routine supply shipments, troop movements, and diplomatic exchanges. But as Sophia dug deeper, a darker picture emerged. The Galactic War Council wasn't just an organization that enforced its will through brute force. It was a master manipulator, pulling strings across the galaxy for centuries. Entire civilizations had risen and fallen under their unseen influence. Wars had been sparked, alliances shattered, and resources drained, all to keep the Council's power intact. Her heart raced as she uncovered references to a secret weapon. It was mentioned only briefly, buried beneath layers of coded language, but the implications were clear. This weapon was capable of destroying entire planets. If the Council decided to use it against Earth, there would be no hope of survival. Sophia knew she couldn't keep this discovery to herself. She grabbed a data chip and copied the files before rushing to find Nathan Cole. He was staying in temporary quarters near the command center, still recovering from his ordeal on the Valoran homeworld. When she knocked on his door, he opened it quickly, his face showing both surprise and concern. "What is it?" he asked, noticing the urgency in her voice. "I think I found something," Sophia said, holding up the chip. "Something big." They moved to a secure briefing room, where Nathan listened intently as Sophia explained her findings. His expression grew darker with each word. "If they have a weapon like that, we're running out of time," he said grimly. "We need to warn Earth's leaders and figure out how to stop them." Together, they pieced together more clues about the weapon's location. According to the files, it was being developed on a remote moon far from major trade routes, a place few ships ever visited. The Council had chosen the site carefully, ensuring it remained hidden from prying eyes. But now that Sophia had cracked their code, the Resistance had a chance to strike back. As they worked, Sophia couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt. Why hadn't anyone noticed these signs earlier? How many lives could have been saved if someone had dared to look closer? She pushed those thoughts aside, focusing instead on what lay ahead. There was no point dwelling on the past when the future hung by a thread. The next morning, they presented their findings to President Monroe and Captain Jacob Reed. The room fell silent as Sophia displayed the evidence on a large screen. Maps, schematics, and intercepted messages painted a chilling picture of the Council's plans. "This isn't just about dominating the galaxy," Sophia said. "It's about erasing anyone who opposes them." Jacob leaned forward, his jaw tight. "Then we hit them before they're ready. We can't let them finish building that thing." President Monroe nodded. "Prepare your teams. We'll launch reconnaissance missions immediately. Every second counts." Nathan volunteered to lead one of the scouting missions, despite objections from those who worried about his recent trauma. "I've seen what they're capable of," he argued. "I know what's at stake. Let me do this." As preparations began, the weight of the mission settled over everyone. They were no longer fighting just to defend Earth. They were fighting to prevent the unthinkable. The Council's weapon represented not only destruction, but also the end of hope for freedom in the galaxy. Sophia returned to her workstation, determined to uncover even more weaknesses in the Council's operations. Each new piece of information brought them closer to victory or disaster. For now, all they could do was trust in their skills, their allies, and the fragile bond holding humanity together. In the quiet moments between planning sessions, Sophia often thought about the Valorans. Their peaceful nature had made them easy targets, yet their courage inspired her every day. She whispered a silent promise to them. "We won't let your sacrifice be in vain." Hidden on the dark side of Earth's moon was a secret base known only to a handful of trusted individuals. It had been built decades ago as a contingency plan, a refuge in case humanity ever faced extinction. Now, it served as the heart of the resistance against the Galactic War Council. Survivors from the Valoran homeworld had been brought here, along with human soldiers, engineers, and strategists determined to fight back. Among the newcomers was Ethan Grant, a former pilot whose haunted eyes told stories of loss. He had once flown missions for Earth's fleet, but after the Council's attack on the Valorans, he blamed himself for not doing enough. His squadron had been overwhelmed, and many of his closest friends had perished. Since then, he had lived in a fog of guilt, unsure if he still had any purpose. But when Nathan Cole approached him with an offer to join the resistance, something inside Ethan stirred. "You don't have to carry this alone." Nathan said one evening, finding Ethan sitting alone in the mess hall. "We're all carrying pieces of what happened. The question is, are you ready to use that pain for something bigger?" Ethan hesitated, staring at the empty plate in front of him. Finally, he nodded. "I'm tired of running," he admitted. "If there's a chance to hit them back, I want in." Nathan smiled faintly. "Good. We could use someone like you." As days passed, Ethan threw himself into training, rediscovering the skills that had once made him one of Earth's best pilots. He worked alongside Mia Torres, a skilled engineer who was tasked with upgrading the Resistance's outdated ships. Her hands moved quickly over control panels, rewiring systems, and adding new weapons to the aging vessels. She had a sharp wit and a no-nonsense attitude. But beneath her tough exterior lay a deep sense of loyalty to the cause. "Don't scratch the paint," she joked as Ethan climbed into a simulator for another practice run. "These ships are all we've got." Meanwhile, Clara Hayes continued her efforts to rally support from neutral alien species. Traveling aboard a small diplomatic ship, she visited planets on the fringes of the galaxy, pleading for assistance. Many leaders were hesitant, fearing retaliation from the Council. But Clara's persistence paid off when a group of insectoid beings called the Krill agreed to provide resources and intelligence. Their queen, a towering figure with shimmering wings, listened intently as Clara spoke of the Council's cruelty. "We will stand with you," the Queen declared. "The Council's greed has gone too far." Back at the lunar base, tensions occasionally flared among the Resistance members. Some argued over strategies, while others struggled with the emotional toll of their mission. One night, during a heated debate in the briefing room, Lieutenant Sophia Blake slammed her fist on the table. "This isn't about pride or ego," she snapped. "Every second we waste arguing is a second the Council gets closer to finishing their weapon. We need to focus." Her words silenced the room, reminding everyone of the stakes. Slowly, the team began to pull together, united by a shared goal. Captain Jacob Reed worked tirelessly to keep morale high, often sharing meals with the crew or joining them in training exercises. He knew that trust and camaraderie would be just as important as firepower in the battles ahead. One day, a scout ship returned with exciting news. They had located remnants of the legendary Ghost Fleet Asterisk. Long thought to have been destroyed in a past conflict, these advanced starships were hidden in an asteroid field. If the Resistance could recover even a few of them, it would give them a significant advantage. Mia immediately volunteered to lead the recovery mission. "Those ships are old, but they're tough," she said confidently. "With a little work, we can make them fly again." Jacob approved the plan, assigning Ethan and a small team to accompany her. As they prepared to leave, Nathan pulled Ethan aside. "This is your chance to prove yourself," he said quietly. "Not just to us, but to you." Ethan nodded, feeling a spark of determination ignite within him. For the first time in months, he felt like he had a purpose again. Together, the team set out for the asteroid field, their hopes riding on the promise of newfound strength. Back at the base, the rest of the Resistance waited anxiously for news. They knew that every discovery, every victory, brought them one step closer to taking down the Council. And though the road ahead was uncertain, they clung to the belief that unity and courage could overcome even the darkest forces. The mission to recover the Ghost Fleet Asterisk was underway. Ethan Grant sat in the cockpit of his ship, gripping the controls tightly as he followed Maya Torres through the dense asteroid field. The jagged rocks loomed around them like silent giants, their surfaces glinting faintly in the dim light of a distant star. Every so often, the scanners would pick up traces of old wreckage, remnants of ships long forgotten, but nothing that matched the descriptions of the legendary fleet. Mia's voice crackled over the comms. "Stay sharp," she said. "These asteroids can block our sensors. We don't want any surprises." Ethan nodded, even though no one could see him. He focused on keeping his ship steady, pushing aside memories of past failures. This time, he told himself, things would be different. They had to be. After hours of searching, the team finally spotted something unusual, a cluster of ships partially buried beneath layers of space dust. Their hulls were battered and scarred, but the distinctive design confirmed they were part of the Ghost Fleet. Ethan felt a surge of excitement as he relayed the news back to the base. Captain Jacob Reed responded immediately, his voice filled with cautious optimism. "Good work. Bring back whatever you can salvage." Mia led the team in docking with one of the ships, its interior dark and cold after decades of disuse. She worked quickly, her tools glowing softly as she repaired damaged systems. "This one's still got some life left in it," she announced after a while. "With a little tweaking, we can get it flying again." As the engineers worked, Ethan stood guard outside the ship, his eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of danger. The silence of the asteroid field unnerved him, making every creak and groan of the metal feel louder than it should. Suddenly, his sensors picked up movement nearby. A small drone hovered into view, its red lights blinking ominously. "Mia, we've got company," Ethan warned, raising his weapon. Before anyone could react, more drones appeared, surrounding the team. They were Council enforcers, automated scouts sent to patrol the area. One of them fired a warning shot, forcing Ethan to dive for cover behind a chunk of debris. "We're under attack," he shouted into the comms. Inside the ship, Mia cursed under her breath. "Almost done," she muttered, her hands moving faster. Outside, Ethan exchanged fire with the drones, his heart pounding as explosions lit up the darkness. He knew they couldn't hold out forever, not against such overwhelming numbers. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, the engines of the recovered ship roared to life. Maya's voice came over the comms, triumphant despite the chaos. "Get in. Now." Ethan sprinted toward the ship, dodging blasts as he went. The rest of the team piled in behind him, and Mia took the controls, steering the vessel away from the asteroid field. The drones pursued them briefly before breaking off, likely summoned back to report their findings. When they returned to the lunar base, the resistance erupted into cheers. The ship, nicknamed the Aurora Blade was a game-changer. Its advanced weapons and shields gave them a fighting chance against the Council's superior forces, but the victory came at a cost. 2 members of the recovery team had been injured during the skirmish, and Ethan carried the weight of their sacrifices heavily. Captain Jacob Reed wasted no time putting the Aurora Blade to use. He ordered an immediate strike on a key supply depot controlled by the Council. Located near the edge of their territory, the depot served as a hub for resources and reinforcements. If they could destroy it, they would deal a significant blow to the Council's operations. Leading the assault was Jacob himself, piloting the Aurora Blade alongside Ethan and a small squadron of fighters. As they approached the target, tension filled the air. Everyone knew this was their first real test since the betrayal of the Valorans. Failure wasn't an option. The battle began with a barrage of laser fire. Enemy ships swarmed around them, trying to overwhelm the attackers. But the Aurora Blade proved its worth, shrugging off hits that would have crippled lesser vessels. Ethan flew close behind, taking out targets with precision shots. His training paid off, and for the first time in months, he felt truly alive. Despite their success, the mission took a heavy toll. Several pilots were lost, including friends Ethan had grown close to during their time at the base. When they returned, the mood was somber. Celebrations were muted, replaced by quiet reflections on the lives sacrificed. Jacob addressed the crew later that evening. "Today we struck a blow against the Council," he said. "But let's not forget the price we paid. Those who fell deserve to be remembered, not just today, but always." As Ethan listened, he realized the war was far from over. Each victory brought them closer to. The success of the supply depot raid gave the resistance a much-needed boost, but it also drew unwanted attention. The Galactic War Council was furious about the attack and vowed to crush the rebels once and for all. Intelligence reports began flooding in, warning of increased patrols and heightened security around Council-controlled territories. It was clear they were preparing for a larger confrontation. Back at the lunar base, tensions ran high. While the victory had been celebrated, the losses weighed heavily on everyone. Nathan Cole spent hours poring over maps and strategy plans, searching for ways to counter the Council's growing aggression. He knew that every move they made would bring them closer to either triumph or disaster. Beside him, Sophia Blake worked tirelessly to analyze enemy movements, her sharp mind piecing together patterns others might miss. One evening, as the team gathered in the briefing room, Maya Torres burst in with surprising news. "We've found another ship," she announced, her voice tinged with excitement. "Another one from the Ghost Fleet *. And this one's even better than the Aurora Blade *. The room erupted into murmurs of disbelief. Could they really be so lucky? Jacob Reed raised a hand to silence the chatter. "Where is it?" he asked. "It's deep in Council territory," Maya replied, "hidden inside an abandoned station. If we can get to it without being detected, we'll have a second powerful weapon in our arsenal." The idea was risky, dangerously so, but the potential rewards were too great to ignore. After a heated discussion, the decision was made. A small, highly skilled team would infiltrate the area and retrieve the ship. Ethan Grant volunteered immediately, eager to prove himself after the last mission. Nathan joined him, knowing his experience with Council tactics would be invaluable. Rounding out the group were two engineers tasked with getting the ship operational quickly. The journey to the abandoned station was fraught with danger. The team flew under the cover of darkness, using advanced cloaking technology to avoid detection. As they approached their destination, the sight of the massive structure took their breath away. Once a thriving hub of activity, the station now floated silently in the void, its corridors dark and lifeless. Inside, the air was cold and stale, carrying the faint scent of decay. The team moved cautiously, their footsteps echoing softly against the metal floors. Every shadow seemed to hide an enemy, every sound a potential threat. They'd reached the docking bay where the ship awaited, its sleek design gleaming faintly in the dim emergency lighting. Mita's eyes lit up as she inspected the controls. "This thing is incredible," she whispered, her fingers flying across the console. "Give me 10 minutes, and I'll have her ready to fly." While Mia worked, Nathan and Ethan kept watch, their weapons drawn. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed, and automated defenses sprang to life. "They know we're here," Ethan shouted. Nathan cursed under his breath. "Get that ship online, Mia. We don't have much time." Enemy drones swarmed into the bay, firing relentlessly. Ethan and Nathan returned fire, taking cover behind crates and debris. Sparks flew as blasts hit nearby surfaces, but they held their ground. "Almost there," Mia called out, her voice strained with effort. Finally, the engines roared to life, shaking the entire bay. The ship, a magnificent vessel dubbed the Shadow Strike *, rose slowly from its resting place, its weapon systems activated just in time, blasting through the attacking drones with ease. "Let's go," Nathan yelled, leading the team toward the boarding ramp. Once inside, Maya took the controls, steering the ship out of the station with precision. Behind them, explosions rocked the structure as self-destruct protocols activated. As they escaped into the vastness of space, the team breathed a collective sigh of relief. The Shadow Strike * was theirs, and its power could turn the tide of the war. But they knew the Council wouldn't let this insult go unanswered. For now, though, they allowed themselves a moment of quiet triumph. Back at the base, Captain Jacob Reed greeted them with pride. "You've done well," he said. "But remember, this is just the beginning. The Council will come for us harder than ever." Ethan nodded, gripping the railing of the newly acquired ship. He felt a renewed sense of purpose. With the Aurora Blade * and the Shadow Strike *, humanity had a fighting chance. All they needed now was the courage to keep pushing forward. As the resistance prepared for their next move, cracks began to form within the team. The constant pressure of war and the mounting losses were taking their toll. Some members questioned Nathan Cole's leadership, believing his personal vendetta against the Galactic War Council clouded his judgment. Others worried that Captain Jacob Reed's cautious approach wasn't aggressive enough to win the war. During a planning session, tensions boiled over. A young soldier named Ryan spoke up, his voice sharp with frustration. "We're losing too many people," he said. "Every mission feels like a gamble, and we're running out of time." Nathan clenched his fists but kept his tone calm. "I understand your concerns," he replied, "but we can't afford to back down now. If we don't take risks, we'll never stop them." Sophia Blake stepped in before the argument could escalate. She had always been the voice of reason, able to see both sides of a conflict. "Ryan's right about one thing," she said. "We need to be smarter about our strategy. But Nathan's also correct. We can't give up. This isn't just about revenge or survival. It's about protecting everyone who believes in freedom." Her words struck a chord, quieting the room. Still, the unease lingered. Jacob noticed it in the way people avoided eye contact or whispered to each other during breaks. He knew morale was slipping, and if they didn't address it soon, the entire operation could fall apart. That evening, Jacob gathered the team for an informal meeting. Instead of discussing battle plans, he asked everyone to share their thoughts. What they feared, what they hoped for, and why they continued to fight. At first, the room was silent, but slowly people began to open up. Ethan Grant was among the last to speak. His voice was soft but steady as he talked about the friends he'd lost and the guilt he carried. "I joined this fight because I wanted to honor them," he admitted. "But sometimes I wonder if I'm doing more harm than good. What if I mess up again?" Jacob looked at him, his expression kind but firm. "None of us are perfect," he said. "We all make mistakes. But the fact that you're here, still fighting despite everything, that's what matters. You're not alone in this." The conversation went on late into the night, bringing the group closer together. By the end, there was a renewed sense of unity. They weren't just soldiers or strategists. They were people bound by shared pain and hope. And while their differences hadn't disappeared completely, they had found a way to coexist. The next day, Mia Torres approached Jacob with an idea. "What if we showed the galaxy what's really going on?" she suggested. "If we broadcast the Council's crimes, show everyone how they destroyed the Valorans and plan to do the same to Earth, it might turn the tide in our favor." Jacob nodded thoughtfully. "It's risky, but it could work. We'll need Clara's help to get the message out." Clara Hayes agreed immediately. Using footage smuggled out by survivors and intercepted transmissions from the Council, she crafted a powerful message. In it, she revealed the truth about the Council's superweapon and their centuries-long manipulation of galactic politics. Her words were simple but heartfelt, appealing to the conscience of anyone watching. When the broadcast went live, it spread like wildfire. Billions across the galaxy tuned in, horrified by what they saw. Neutral species that had once refused to take sides began reconsidering their stance. Even some Council-aligned planets expressed outrage, sparking protests and acts of defiance. On Earth, the reaction was electric. Civilians rallied behind the resistance, offering whatever support they could. Factories worked around the clock to produce supplies, and volunteers flooded recruitment centers. For the first time in months, hope seemed possible. The Council retaliated swiftly, attempting to jam the signal and discredit Clara's claims. But the damage was done. Their iron grip on the galaxy was weakening, and humanity's defenders stood stronger than ever. As the team regrouped, Nathan turned to Jacob. "This changes everything," he said. "They know we're coming for them." Jacob smiled faintly. "Good. Let's make sure they regret underestimating us." The road ahead was still dangerous, but for the first time, the resistance felt like they weren't fighting alone. The galaxy was watching, and waiting to see what would happen next. The Resistance's next move was clear. They had to destroy the Council's superweapon before it could be used against Earth. Nathan Cole and Sophia Blake spent hours poring over intelligence reports, piecing together the location of the weapon's development site. It was hidden on a remote moon, heavily guarded by automated defenses and elite troops. Breaking in would be nearly impossible, but they had no other choice. Nathan devised a bold plan. He and Sophia would leave a small team to infiltrate the facility, while Jacob Reed commanded a larger fleet to draw the Council's forces away. The distraction would give them just enough time to disable the weapon, if everything went according to plan. On the eve of the mission, the team gathered in the briefing room. Ethan Grant stood quietly, his mind racing with doubts. "What if we fail?" he asked softly, breaking the silence. "We can't think like that," Nathan replied firmly. "This isn't just about us anymore. The entire galaxy is counting on us." Sophia added, "We've trained for this. We know what we're up against. Trust in each other, and we'll get through it." Jacob stepped forward, addressing the group. "Remember why we're here," he said. "For the Valorans who trusted us, for Earth, our home, and for every being out there who deserves a chance at freedom. Let's make them proud." The journey to the moon was tense. The team flew under the cover of darkness, their ships cloaked to avoid detection. As they approached the facility, the sight of it sent chills down their spines. Towering walls surrounded the complex, bristling with turrets and patrolling drones. Inside, the weapon loomed like a monstrous shadow, its unfinished form radiating menace. Nathan and Sophia led the infiltration team onto the surface, moving quickly and silently. They wore specialized suits designed to mask their heat signatures, allowing them to slip past the outer defenses. But as they neared the entrance, alarms blared suddenly. A stray drone had spotted them. "Move," Nathan shouted, firing at the drone as it raised the alarm. The team sprinted toward the door, dodging laser blasts from newly activated turrets. One of the engineers tripped, and Ethan turned back to help him up, dragging him to safety just as an explosion rocked the ground behind them. Inside the facility, chaos erupted. Enemy soldiers swarmed the corridors, forcing the team to split up. Nathan and Sophia pressed on toward the control room, where the weapons systems were housed. Along the way, they encountered locked doors and security barriers, each one requiring precious seconds to bypass. Meanwhile, outside, Jacob's fleet engaged the Council's forces in a fierce battle. Explosions lit up the sky as starships clashed, their weapons tearing through space. Jacob piloted the Aurora Blade with precision, taking out enemy fighters while keeping a close eye on the team's progress below. "Hold on, Nathan," he muttered under his breath. "Just a little longer." Back inside the facility, Nathan and Sophia finally reached the control room. Panels lined the walls, glowing with intricate readouts and warnings. Sophia immediately set to work, her fingers flying across the console. "I need 2 minutes," she said, her voice steady despite the urgency. Nathan stood guard, firing at approaching soldiers. Bullets ricocheted off nearby surfaces, and the air grew thick with smoke. "Hurry," he urged, glancing over his shoulder. Sophia didn't respond, her focus absolute. She rewrote lines of code, disabling safeguards and rerouting power to overload the weapon's core. Sweat dripped from her brow as the timer ticked down. Finally, a green light blinked on the screen. "Done," she gasped. But their relief was short-lived. Reinforcements flooded into the room, cornering them. Nathan raised his weapon, ready to fight to the death, when a familiar voice crackled over the comms. "Get out of there," Jacob yelled. "Now." The team scrambled toward the exit, pursued relentlessly by the Council's forces. Just as they reached their ship, the facility shook violently. The superweapon's core destabilized, collapsing inward in a blinding flash of light. The shockwave knocked the team off their feet, but they managed to escape before the moon was consumed by destruction. As they regrouped aboard the Shadow Strike, The team allowed themselves a moment of quiet triumph. The weapon was gone, but the war was far from over. The destruction of the superweapon was a major victory, but it came at a heavy cost. As the team aboard the Shadow Strike regrouped, they struggled to process what had happened. Ethan Grant sat alone in a corner, staring at his hands. He couldn't shake the memory of the engineer who had sacrificed himself to hold off pursuing guards. He didn't even hesitate, Ethan whispered to himself. He just stayed behind so we could make it. Nathan Cole felt the weight of leadership pressing down on him. He had promised to protect his team, yet he had led them into one of the most dangerous missions of their lives. When Sophia approached him, her expression was calm but firm. "You can't carry all of this by yourself," she said softly. "We knew the risks when we signed up. What matters now is finishing what we started." Sophia's words reminded Nathan of why they were fighting, not just for Earth or the Valorans, but for every being who deserved a chance at freedom. Still, the losses weighed heavily on everyone. Clara Hayes, who had remained aboard the lunar base, sent a message of encouragement. Her voice trembled slightly as she spoke. "You've done something incredible. The galaxy saw your bravery today. Keep going, for those who gave everything." Back at the moon base, preparations were underway for the final phase of the Resistance's plan. With the superweapon destroyed, the Council's forces were scrambling to recover. But the Resistance wasn't about to let them regain their footing. Captain Jacob Reed called a meeting to discuss their next move. "We hit them where it hurts," Jacob declared, pointing to a map of the Council's stronghold. "Their central command hub. It's heavily guarded, but if we take it out, we cripple their ability to fight back." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the gravity of the mission. Taking down the command hub would require precision, coordination, and immense courage. They would need every ship, every soldier, and every ounce of determination they had left. Ethan volunteered without hesitation. "I'm in," he said firmly. "Whatever it takes." Mia Torres nodded in agreement. "We'll prep the ships. The Aurora Blade and the Shadow Strike are ready to lead the charge." As the team worked tirelessly to prepare, Clara continued her efforts to rally support from across the galaxy. Her broadcast revealing the Council's crimes had sparked outrage, and several neutral species had pledged their aid. Ships from distant planets began arriving at the lunar base, carrying supplies, reinforcements, and messages of solidarity. One evening, as the fleet gathered for the assault, Nathan addressed the crew. His voice was steady, filled with resolve. "This isn't just our fight anymore. People from every corner of the galaxy are standing with us because they believe in what we're doing. We owe it to them, and to ourselves, to see this through." The battle began under the cover of darkness. Jacob led the charge aboard the Aurora Blade drawing the Council's forces into a fierce engagement. Explosions lit up the void of space as starships clashed, their weapons tearing through enemy lines. Ethan flew alongside the Shadow Strike taking out targets with unshakable focus. Each shot he fired was a tribute to the friends he had lost. Meanwhile, Nathan and Sophia led a boarding party toward the command hub. Their path was fraught with danger. Enemy troops swarmed the corridors, and automated defenses threatened to cut them off at every turn. But the team pressed on, driven by sheer willpower. Inside the hub, chaos reigned. Nathan and Sophia fought their way to the main control room, where they disabled critical systems one by one. Alarms blared, and red lights flashed as the Council's stronghold began to collapse around them. Just as they finished their task, an explosion rocked the building. Debris rained down, trapping them inside. "We're not done yet," Nathan said, helping Sophia to her feet. Together, they pushed forward, knowing that survival depended on reaching their extraction point. Outside, Jacob noticed their escape route was blocked. Without hesitation, he ordered the Aurora Blade to breach the blockade. "Hold on," he shouted over the comms. "We're coming for you." As the Resistance fought its way to victory, The Council's grip on the galaxy crumbled. Their empire, built on fear and manipulation, was falling apart. And though the cost had been high, the defenders of Earth refused to give up, not until justice was served. The final moments of the battle were chaotic and intense. Nathan Cole and Sophia Blake sprinted through the crumbling command hub, dodging falling debris and enemy fire. Their escape route was blocked by a collapsed corridor, forcing them to find another way out. Every second felt like an eternity as alarms screamed around them. "We're almost there," Sophia said, her voice strained but determined. She led the way, using her knowledge of the facility's layout to guide them toward an emergency exit. Behind them, explosions tore through the structure, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Outside, Jacob Reed piloted the Aurora Blade with unmatched skill, weaving through enemy ships to reach the extraction point. His heart raced as he saw the command hub collapsing in the distance. "Hold on, Nathan," he shouted into the comms, though he wasn't sure if they could hear him. Finally, Nathan and Sophia burst out of the facility just as a massive explosion ripped through the building. The shockwave knocked them off their feet, but they quickly scrambled to their feet and ran toward the waiting shuttle. The Shadow Strike hovered nearby, its engines roaring as it provided cover fire. Ethan Grant leaned out of the hatch, reaching down to pull them aboard. "Go! Go!" Nathan yelled as soon as they were inside. The shuttle lifted off just as the command hub collapsed in a fiery inferno behind them. Back in space, the Resistance fleet fought fiercely to hold off the Council's remaining forces. Ships from allied species joined the fray, turning the tide of the battle. The combined assault overwhelmed the Council's defenses, leaving their once mighty armada in disarray. Captain Jacob Reed delivered the final blow, steering the Aurora Blade directly at the Council's flagship. With precision timing, he fired a volley of missiles, striking the vessel's core. The resulting explosion lit up the void of space, signaling the end of the Council's dominance. As the dust settled, the surviving members of the Resistance gathered aboard the lunar base. Exhausted but triumphant, they shared quiet moments of reflection. Clara Hayes stood before the group, her voice trembling with emotion. "Today, we proved that even in the darkest times, hope can prevail. We did this not just for ourselves, but for everyone who believed in a better future." Nathan looked around at the faces of his comrades, some scared, others wary, but all united by a shared purpose. He thought of the Valorans who had given everything to protect Earth and knew their sacrifice would never be forgotten. "This isn't the end," he said firmly. "It's a new beginning. Together, we'll rebuild what was lost and ensure no one has to live under tyranny again." Ethan nodded, feeling a sense of peace he hadn't known in months. The guilt he carried had lessened, replaced by pride in what they had accomplished. Maya Torres smiled faintly, already sketching plans to repair and upgrade the fleet for whatever challenges lay ahead. President Laura Monroe addressed the galaxy in a broadcast, thanking the Resistance and its allies for their courage. Her words echoed across planets and star systems, inspiring millions to work toward unity and cooperation. Neutral species that had once feared the Council now stepped forward to help heal the wounds of war. Though the scars of battle would linger, humanity and its newfound allies emerged stronger than ever. The Galactic War Council's reign of fear was over, replaced by the promise of freedom and collaboration. As Nathan gazed at the stars from the observation deck of the lunar base, he whispered a silent vow to the Valorans. Your legacy lives on. And with that, he turned to join his team, ready to face whatever the future held, together.